Thanks for joining us today. I'm Serena.
I'm Allison.
And today we're going to talk about why we hate LVP. So as you know, luxury vinyl plank has exploded in popularity over the last few years. You see it in new homes, flips, rentals, literally everywhere. It's marketed as waterproof, indestructible, and perfect for busy households. However, we're going to talk about why we don't actually love it. All right, so we're just going to go ahead and get into it. Why does Floor Authority hate LVP?
We think that it was way oversold in the beginning. The marketing, whoever the first ones were to market it, did a fantastic job, honestly. They, sold it as this indestructible, life-proof, pet-proof, everything-proof flooring, and it's just not. If you have furniture that's heavy enough and you drag it across your floor, it's going to scratch. If you drop something sharp on your floor, it's going to gouge it, it's going to dent it, like something is going to happen to it. Not to mention, like, the overall thickness of the LVP really kind of matters a lot, because like the locking mechanism of it can only be so thick if the flooring is so thick. So, as you're putting these pieces together, or if you have a repair that you have to make and you need to take a piece out, put a piece in, like, those locking mechanisms are not bulletproof. They're not, like, they're going to break, they're going to chip, things are going to happen.
And if that happens, does that mean you can replace essentially just the plank? Do you have to replace a couple pieces of it if they break?
It really kind of depends on the situation, but typically it's not just a one plank replace. Like, you have to take up more than what's truly affected to do it, and hopefully not have any issues in the future, but you never know.
Right. So I have some sample pieces out. I just wanted to show kind of how easy it is to break these locking mechanisms as well as scratching LVP. I literally just took this sample and threw it on the floor, and already these locking mechanisms chipped right off, no problem. And we have some scissors here, and I just want to show how easy it is to scratch LVP. Barely any pressure, and you've already got scratches. So as you can see, this is not indestructible flooring. The littlest things probably will mess up your floors,
unfortunately.
So, all right, so we hear this a lot. We hear that LVP is waterproof. What are your thoughts?
That word is like a trigger word. Waterproof is just such it's such a big word, it's such, like, it makes you think that it's, again, indestructible, and it's just not. Like, if your house floods, for one, you're going to have a much bigger problem than just your floor. You're going to have a lot of other things to replace. But if water gets under these floors and you don't mitigate it correctly, you're going to have mold, you're going to have bigger issues. So, like, is the material itself waterproof? Could you dunk this sample in water and it not warp? Probably, yeah. But over time, as it dries and as the humidity in the concrete moves through your LVP and just moisture in general happens, these products are going to warp. They're going to start to peak. They're going, like, it's not waterproof once it's all together, really.
So it's really only waterproof for a certain amount of time before you clean it up, right? Like, quick little cleanups, they're waterproof, but like,
yeah, like if you spill something on these and you're unloading the dishwasher and some water gets out by your sink and whatever, and you wipe it up, you're going to be fine. But like, if you have a slow leak happening that you don't necessarily know about as it's happening, you're going to have problems.
And again, that's probably not something you replace a small little section. You're going to have to replace the entire floor.
Yeah.
Which I guess ends up costing you a lot more money in the long run, right? So with that being said, of maybe you do get a leak under your floor and you need to replace your floor, or let's say you get a scratch in your floor, something happens to your floor. Let's talk about warranties. Let's talk about, do they hold up? What's the deal with those?
So warranties are pretty words on paper, but unfortunately they're smaller print. That isn't always so pretty. A lot of times warranties will say, it covers everyday wear and tear, or, however they word it. But it's, at the end of the day, if something happens in your home, like a leak or something of that magnitude, your flooring warranty is not going to cover the fact that your sink leaked. Like, that's
Right.
just not going to happen. And big companies are really good at not having to hold up their end of the deal when it comes time to make a warranty claim.
So would you say that warranties are, like, what would be acceptable under a warranty that people could actually use the warranty for?
I don't even know. Like, there's very few manufacturer's defects that like a manufacturer will agree to or a third party inspector will agree to. Like, most of the time they're going to find an outside source as to why this is happening. So like, the warranties at the end of the day are kind of silly.
So I guess with that being said, you probably want to pick a flooring that is going to be durable, is going to last you, and it's going to have a very small chance of needing repairs or...
Well, and I would think about it like this, you know, like LVP is big in the market right now, yes, but like, look 20 years ago, did anyone use LVP then? No. Like, it's a fairly new product, whereas like things like tile and wood and even carpet have been around a lot longer,
Right.
and have more of like the test of time behind them. So like, I think that a lot of these companies are kind of learning as they go as well. Like, I think that they're probably trying to determine how durable this is and how long it will truly last. Because like, if you ask me if it's going to last 25 years in your house, I have no idea.
Right.
How do you live?
Right.
You know, like,
right.
Do you have 7 Great Danes running through your house
right.
and 14 children? Maybe, I don't know. And if you do, it's probably not going to last.
right. Well, with that being said, we're going to roll right into installation and how it's changed over the years and how it affects how your flooring is laid.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, you know, LVP has not been on the market for very long in the grand scheme of things. And like, you know, 5 to 10 years ago, if someone came in and said, hey, I have a tile floor in my house that I think is just ugly and I just want to cover it up.
Yeah.
LVP was the answer. You know, you could just lay it right on top of it as long as it was in good shape and it wasn't cracked and, you know, the conditions were right. Sure, go ahead. Now, if you were to have that same floor have an issue and an inspector or someone came out to take a look at it and lifted a piece of LVP and saw that there was something besides your subfloor and a 6 mil poly layer underneath it, they would deny that claim. They would say, you know, that's not acceptable for installation, and however many years ago it was. So,
right.
Not to mention, you know, a few years ago too, they would say, you know, if as long as your slab measures within a certain amount of moisture, you're fine. You know, you might need to seal the slab, not a big deal. But now, you know, if you don't have that layer of the 6 mil poly beneath your LVP, your claim is basically getting denied.
No good.
On the spot.
No good.
Yep.
So something that homeowners probably don't think about until after installation is how the floor is actually going to feel or sound. So what are your thoughts with LVP?
So LVP is a floating floor. So, you know, it's not, there's nothing holding it down to your subfloor besides gravity and each other, I guess. But that being said, you know, you're going to hear like a hollowness to it. You're going to hear high heels clicking on it. You're going to hear dog's paws like scratching it. It sounds different. Whereas if you had like a tile or a wood or something that was adhered to your subfloor, you would hear it a little bit less. Like, you know, in a big open space before you have furniture, no matter what you have in there, it's going to sound cavernous at first. But once you add area rugs and furniture and that kind of a thing, you don't really hear it as much when you have a wood floor or a tile floor. Whereas with LVP, you're always going to hear some sort of clicking when you're walking on it.
I can definitely attest to that. I have 2 little ones and you can just hear their little claws running all over the floor. In regards to like the feel of LVP compared to hardwood or a tile, essentially, how does that feel
underfoot?
Yeah.
I think it depends on the person. Like personally, I can tell when I walk into a house if it has LVP in it. to me, it doesn't feel as sturdy. It doesn't feel as substantial as like a tile or a
Mm-hmm.
wood. And two, if you have any spaces where, like large open spaces where you can just walk for
Right.
forever,
For a large amount of time.
you're going to hear it, So I don't know. It just, LVP definitely sounds different than tile and wood, so it feels different too.
So I guess maybe to like help if you do have LVP in your home, would you say like area rugs or?
Yeah, area rugs are definitely helpful. And to even under like large furniture pieces, like you should always put some sort of like protective pad underneath the feet of and that kind of a thing.
It's definitely smart. Okay, so at the end of the day, when you strip away all this marketing, what is LVP?
LVP has its purpose. I don't want to discount that. It absolutely does. In a starter home, in a secondary home that you don't live in all the time, in secondary spaces even in your home.
Mm-hmm.
If you're an empty nester and you have an upstairs space that only gets used a few times a year when your family comes to visit and you want to save some money and put LVP in that space, okay, do it. Like
Mm-hmm.
that makes sense. But at the end of the day, like it's not permanent.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're building your forever home, don't put a for now floor in. Like
why waste your money, right?
Right. You're going to end up replacing it before your forever is up.
Right.
So,
right.
So yeah, I think, it's an investment no matter what, no matter if you're putting LVP or wood or tile or what have you in your house. Your flooring is arguably one of your biggest square footages, minus maybe your drywall. But, make sure you invest well. Like if you're going to spend the money on it anyway, you might as well get something that's going to last and get something that's going to stand the test of time and add value to your home. And like I said, in a starter home, I think it's great. In a flip house, I can see its value.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're building this house that you want to stay in for the next 30 plus years,
right,
I wouldn't choose something that hasn't been on the market that long.
So do you want to throw out some maybe misconception that people, like myself, is they think LVP is the cheapest. That's going to get them the best bang for their buck, basically. But as I've been doing more research, I've seen that there are comparable prices for tile and for hardwood. So can you maybe explain to them that, it's not always the cheapest out there?
Yeah. So really, you really want to compare the value of what you're getting. So like I was saying, if you're going to invest in your flooring, sure, LVP might maybe be less expensive on the front end, but if you're going to have to replace it, is it really less expensive? No.
Right.
And there are woods out there that aren't, leaps and bounds more. Like, is it a couple dollars more a square foot? Maybe. But at the end of the day, 3,000 square foot house, $1 more a square foot, it's $3,000 more dollars. Does it make sense to invest it on the front end than to have to replace it and spend more on tear out and moving furniture and being, discombobulated in your home?
Don't even think about all that.
Right? And tile's the same way. Tile installation is more absolutely than LVP. There's a lot more that goes into it. But there are some tiles out there that are just as inexpensive as LVPs or similar in price at least.
Yeah.
So I think it's always worth looking at your options, pricing all of your options and kind of seeing what makes the most sense long term, because you don't want to replace your floors every 5 years. That sounds like a pain
horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible idea. I don't know who would want to do that anyway. Yeah. Like I'm the type of person, it's a kind of one and done thing,
And I think that's how most people are. And probably should be. No one wants to live that way.
I mean, unless you like redoing your house every couple of years. Then so if someone was considering LVP, what advice would you give them? What to look for?
I would say do your research, but also Google is not always your best friend. There's a lot of misinformation out there. So I think finding someone that you trust to get information from, and like talk to installers and like get their opinion and that kind of a thing.
I mean, they work with the products every day, basically.
Right. And also think about your own situation. Like you know, if you live in a home with you and one other person, and there's no pets, no high traffic, like nothing crazy,
Right.
and you just, you know, want something that looks nice, looks like wood, and you have a pretty low-key life, LVP might be the answer. But, you know, like I said, with the 7 Great Danes and the 14 children,
Right.
you probably want tile.
Right.
Or at least wood, but something that's a little bit more durable long term.
Right.
So,
So huge thank you to Allison for being here today and explaining basically why we hate LVP. I will say it's very important that you do your own research. I will say LVP does have its purpose, its time, its place, but don't always believe what's marketed out there, because more than not, it's probably not true. If you found this video helpful, be sure to subscribe for more honest flooring advice. And if you have any questions, be sure to drop them below. We'll be sure to answer them.